I'm not going to have this victim mentality.
Yeah.
You be better.
Yeah.
You work your ass off. You show up to class every single day and you figure out what it takes to get straight A's or whatever. If you have a goal in life and you don't want to be the victim, then you got to work a little harder.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's anything about racism. I think that's just, that's a mindset.
All right, welcome to the Darren Woodson Show. So we've been doing this show now almost 2 years. We got a couple more months, and we'll hit the 2-year mark. And I feel like we've really focused on speaking life into people, being positive, taking a perspective as opposed to being pessimistic and, the world is falling and all these things. We've really wanted to say, okay, hey, look, let's look at it from a positive perspective. Take whatever situation you're dealing with, spin it for your own benefit so that you can, accomplish the things that you're capable of. And so one of the things that I think we've all talked about that early on in the show we shied away from, we were just a little bit like, that's a hard topic. We're going through a pandemic, but also going through a ton of racial issues that we just haven't discussed and been really kind of, okay, Darren's talked about his upbringing. He's talked about the challenges of the inner city. He's talked about a ton of things, but like having a real conversation about currently what is the situation and not necessarily just racism, but anytime we're talking about gender, anytime we're talking about socioeconomic levels, anytime that you are looking down upon an individual or a class because of something that they necessarily can't control. Right. So the reason this was sparked is this article that came out on ESPN last week about Robert Starver, the majority owner of the Phoenix Suns. And this article writes about how he has a hostile workplace. There are racial insensitivities by using the N-word and talking down to people and misogynistic.
Apparently he was passing
events.
around a picture of his wife in a bikini and talking about oral sex and like just weird.
Those are accusations.
Well,
Inappropriate deal. And let's be very clear. There's not anything right now. We're not saying he's guilty. We're not saying this is what the article said and this is what the accusations are. Is that he just created a workplace in the Phoenix Suns organization that people didn't feel safe, didn't feel like, hey, he respects me, or he is, he is encouraging the workplace. It was a really bad place. And he even said, like, in his interviews, is like, I'm paying you a lot of money to put up with my shit. And like, he says that to people in interviews.
Allegedly.
And allegedly, according to the article. And he's denied all these things. His attorneys have, the upper management for the Suns have denied it. So it's this weird deal, but regardless of that, right? That was just the catalyst for this conversation was, let's have this conversation about the current state of race and gender in our country. And I think specifically we want to start with the race. We're 3 football players that lived in an environment that there was rules and there was, there's a line that you cannot cross, but it was a different line, I think, than the general public is held to a standard of, right? Because, and here's why, is there's a level of trust in that locker room. And you can say things to your brothers that you can't say to a stranger, right? And same with your close friend group that, okay, look, hey, I could say something to Darren and he knows the heart behind who I am. But the challenge with these people, and I say these people, it's the people that have a low level of emotional intelligence and understand, like, hey, I don't have a connection with you. I don't have a deep personal relationship where you truly know me. And now it can come off, you can mean it as a joke, you can mean it as being funny, but what it does is it tears somebody down. Right. And I want to be clear. I always take a stance like, listen, like, I do feel like we are a very oversensitive culture in a lot of aspects. But when it comes to race and gender, that's not something that I think that we need to say, oh, you're too soft, get over it. Like, we need to be very aware of it because, and Ben, you and I were talking yesterday, and look, there is a lot of things that Ben and I will never understand. That Darren, experiences that you've had in your life. There's experiences that we will never go through that even your kids.
Right.
And it's as a result, right? And it's a byproduct of legitimate racism, legitimate laws that held certain races behind in the 70s or 60s, 70s, and 80s, right?
Jim Crow law, yeah.
And so again, these are the byproducts, the repercussions of some terrible laws and terrible, really just hearts that people had in the past that we're dealing with today. And I'll say this, I believe, and again, I'm not saying that I have the same experiences, but I do believe we're in a much better place today than we were 20, 30, 40 years ago. But I just wanted to kick this off. Like this is a freelance conversation. We don't have any structure. We just want to have a very real, honest, transparent conversation about this.
And I would say, early on, just in having this conversation, is that there are things that are said or things that are felt that are insensitive, like just truly insensitive. And a lot of that applies from the house. Like I've had instances of seeing where kids that are 5 years old, 6 years old, are making statements at school, saying things at school. Well, kids haven't thought about this. It's coming from the house. And it's because people, even when it's, when you say things in a small private area, those things are going to come to light at some point. Someone else, it's like a bomb hits, someone else is going to feel that repercussion if there's any insensitivity. And that goes for black, white, purple, doesn't matter who you are. Whatever you say that you speak into existence at some point is going to be picked up by someone else. It's just the ways of the world, right? So
effect,
exactly. So if you feel like you're, if you can control your tongue, this, I don't want to go biblical on here, but controlling your tongue, man, is such a big part of stopping the insensitivities and understanding. Like, just listen. Sometimes the biggest thing that you could ever do for someone else that doesn't look like you is just listen to them.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's a great point. And I think it's what we talked about a few weeks ago when we were talking about the vaccine mandates. It's you come to these discussions with your personal experience in hand. So whatever you personally experienced, that's the lens that you see these discussions through. So for me personally, the racial discussion is always interesting because the way I grew up is a little bit different than you might stereotype me as the way I grew up. So I grew up born in another country where I was the minority. My skin color was a minority. Don't remember much living there, but then I moved to a city in West Texas where I don't have the statistical exact numbers, but anecdotally, I would say it's 50% Hispanic. My middle school and high school were 50% Hispanic, and the rest were white, black, minority, Asian. And so for me, and then I go to college and I get into a locker room where, again, large black community, whites are the minority in the locker room. So I've always been in environments where it hasn't been an issue.
Right.
Color of your skin does not matter just because it's so, I'm comfortable around people that are different than me. And so I never really considered race as an issue, honestly, until the last few years. I knew we were having this conversation, so I thought I've been thinking about the last few days. Can I think of a scenario that was legitimately racist growing up? And I really can't think of a scenario that I witnessed true racism. And again, I think it's because the background was so diverse. Everybody was so different than everybody, so it was just normal. It wasn't like I grew up in an all-white neighborhood or an all-white community, and I thought of other people as being less because of the color. It was just normal. So it's just interesting for me coming about this. So I'm so naive, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm so naive to this discussion because it's never been an issue for me.
Was race ever a topic within your own house? And again, look, your background's a little different. I mean, your background is your parents are missionaries,
right?
And they were in Brazil, and they've been, they've understood, and they've been trying to serve all these years. So was race ever a topic that?
Never. I don't remember a specific topic where my parents had to talk to me about race. The conversation was always just about loving people. It never centered around the color of their skin. It was just loving people in general. So I've always had this ingrained in my head that, hey, you just treat everybody like the same, no matter how much money they have, no matter what color their skin is. That's how but it was never a, hey, this group is being treated a different way, or that group's. I don't. It just never crossed, I guess, my parents' mind to talk. I don't know, because like I said, the environment that I grew up in, the environment they immersed themselves in, was so diverse that it just wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I'm coming to these discussions, I'm like blown away by the experiences you've had, Darren, because I didn't have those experiences. So it was just normal for me.
Yeah, those are, and it was normal for us to have race conversation within my house. It was just normal, and those conversations that took place were my mother and my father, who wasn't always in a part of my life, but having discussions with them about what you can and what you can't do, and how to act around, authority figure or like a police officers or whatnot, and showing respect. And, my mother telling us at a young age, like, you gotta be better than the white kid across the street, period. You gotta be better. You gotta work harder. You gotta have a better education. And if it's an even 1-2, like if it's a pick between getting a job and you guys are even, you're not getting a job. So you better do something that's even better than that. So she would always push us to have that mentality. And it hasn't fallen far from the apple tree with me. I've taught my kids the same thing. Like, you got to be better, because people normally that are in authority are usually people of a different skin color than you, right? Than my kids, right? And most people, and it's just innate. It doesn't matter. If we were in Nigeria, it'd be probably the same way. They're going to hire someone that looks like them. They want to be around people that looks like them, right? So that's the reason that you have to, and we have to accept that as black people, understand, or brown people understand that those that are hiring are normally probably going to hire someone that looks like them. And that's where the comfortability is. So what is it that separates you from them?
Yeah.
And that's something that's been taught to me from a young age, and something I've always said the same thing: be better.
Let me ask you a question, and this is just this as you're saying this, I'm not arguing with the truth, right? I'm not arguing with the validity of that statement, because I agree with you. I think that naturally humans, right, like we gravitate towards people that are similar to us.
Absolutely.
Like personality, faith, whatever. Think about it, right? Like we have these groups that we connect with. And I'm not saying it's always physical, but like, I mean, think about your friend groups. It's like, hey, we live in the same neighborhood, and we enjoy the same things. So, but let me ask this: do you feel like that language then creates resentment to the other side? And then is that a form of racism?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I honestly, I don't feel like, I think it's, look, I'm a firm believer in black people or brown people understanding one thing: stop looking for fucking handouts. And there's got to be tough language by your parents at some point, someone that loves you, truly loves you, to say, hey, look, we're not looking for handouts. I'm going to work my ass off to get what I want. See, it's the thing, it's the guys, it's the people that always say, well, it's, even if you walk into a workplace and they choose someone else and I'm the victim, like they take this victim mentality. Dude, if I'm a parent, I'm not going to have this victim mentality. Yeah. You be better.
Yeah.
You work your ass off. You show up to class every single day and you figure out what it takes to get straight A's or whatever. If you have a goal in life and you don't want to be the victim, then you got to work a little harder.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's anything about racism. I think that's just, that's a mindset.
Yeah.
And you have to have that mindset, or if you don't, you're going to be a victim.
There's a dozen different places I can go, but it's interesting as you hear say. So it's not that you're telling your kids and your mom told you, hey, you're going to be behind. You're always going to be behind.
No, she wasn't.
She was telling you, hey, be mindful that this is the reality. Yeah. You're going to have to work that. So there's a subtle difference there, but it's a big difference.
Yeah, it's
in
a
the
huge
message
difference. Yes.
That, hey, you're behind and you're always going to be behind, versus, hey, you're behind, you're going to have to work that much harder.
That's right. Yeah.
I love that your mother, that's the message she taught you, was you're just going to have to work that much harder.
And it's the same mother my mother's having a servant mindset. Is she had two jobs, right? She worked in corporate America in a time where it was heavy.
Yeah.
The racism was blatant. It was right in front of your face.
Yeah.
And what did she have to do to support her kids? She had to take it. She had to take it on the chin. And she also witnessed at the same time, like there were some, things weren't even, things weren't level. So what did she want to do? I got to work even harder. I got to show. I can't miss a day. I got to catch the bus. I got to, because people back then didn't give a shit. She was late, you're fired. She couldn't be late because she had to put food on the table for her kids, right? So it was more.
Yeah.
Give me more. And I thought it was the best lesson because I've seen my own friends whose parents, and God bless them, and we're all different in our own ways and how we raise our kids, but I've sat there and watched some of the people that I grew up with have this victim mentality, like they owe us something. No, people don't owe you shit. You go fucking get it. This is a country where you can go get it.
Yeah. And I think that's it, right? Speaking the life that, like, hey, you can go get it. Like, they are no different than you.
That's right.
Be aware. And the reason I asked that, right, is I want to be conscious of the fact that, okay, even the language that, like, hey, you've got to be twice as good just because they think that they're better than you. Right. And I want to be conscious of that language. I'm not saying it's not reality. I'm not saying that, hey, look, there are inherent things. And I would say, obviously, more as you were growing up and your mom definitely faced those things, like, no doubt. But even today, as you're talking to your kids, like, even the police thing, right? Like, hey, here is the reality, right?
Yes.
Like, you be on point, you be respectful, you be this. Like, don't be that guy, right? That creates a situation that doesn't need to happen. Right. That's not a conversation that Ben and I's parents had to have with us. That's reality. But being also,
I was going to say, my parents did have the conversation. I think.
Well, that's just decent. Like, that's just like, don't be an a-hole. Right?
I know what you're saying.
But it's not. But it wasn't the conversation of, like, hey, listen, the police are going to be on hyper alert because your blonde hair and blue eyes.
No, okay, but you did. Tell me if I'm wrong. Your parents did have a conversation with you going over to certain areas. You tell me, and saying, like, hey, you don't want to go over there, that area after this time of day, right? Did your parents ever have those conversations? Maybe because you grew up in Abilene. I mean, there probably wasn't no hoods.
But again,
we all know Ben never went out of the house.
It wasn't that there was no hoods. It was just that there was, like, not everybody was the same. I'm not saying that, but I did not grow up with money. That's not, so it's not like I was in some rich neighborhood and they're like, hey, don't go to that neighborhood because you're going to get in trouble.
They probably were like,
they were just like, there was no conversation. Like, I don't know. I really don't remember that conversation ever happening.
Did you ever have
hey, don't go to that side of town because of this or that.
I've had, one of my closest friends is, a white guy in the inner city.
I was born in Rio. My parents lived in Rio de Janeiro for 10 years.
The most dangerous cities on the planet.
10 times worse than New York City as far as crime. My parents had their car stolen at gunpoint. Growing up. Abilene, Texas is nothing. There was never conversation of, hey, don't go to that. We weren't scared of that. I mean, my parents had been in way worse.
Yeah, Fresno, we did. We absolutely did. There was no doubt. Because, like, there was a line where if you're out after dark.
Where the Bulldogs were.
The Bulldogs, the Asian gangs, the Norteñas, like, whoever it was, like, there was a good chance if you looked a certain way that you were going to be a target.
Absolutely.
Like, so there was definitely that conversation.
But that's a real conversation that your parents probably had with you, right? So it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It maybe applies in a different way, but I would rather have my parents or my mom and be a parent that's just transparent with my kids. Like, it's one thing I always say in my house, I would rather be transparent with you and hurt your feelings in my house, in these walls, because when you walk out the door, life is not going to be such. It's not going to be honest with you. It's just going to take. It's just what it is. That's just life, right? I mean, people don't love you outside of these walls, and they're going to treat you a certain way. So I would rather be the one that has informed you of what's out there.
So where's the line for you, do you think, to where you're maybe going too far on that? Being too careful. Is there a line? This is a genuine question. Is there a line where you're going?
Yeah, I think it's a line I think it's a line of look, I think it's
scared of everybody, or
where's this coming from? Like, what is the reason why we're having this conversation? That's where's this coming from? This is not something that's a negative conversation in a sense where I'm pointing the finger at everyone that's on the outside of it's their fault. You guys have heard me on this show for a million times. I always say it starts with me, or it starts with my kids. Doesn't start with anybody else. People can say things about you. Who gives a damn? You know who you are, right? So it starts with me. And I feel like the same way when my kids and I'm having these conversations with my kids, it is a total focus on self. How can you get better? How can you be the better person? Stop relying on everyone else to make you feel good on the outside or put you down on the outside. It starts with you on the inside. Yeah. And then you build upon that. But I'm not out here pointing the fingers like, well, that guy and this guy, and you're going to have to do this and do that and blah, blah, blah. No, it comes, I'm going to be transparent with you. This is how the world is. Now, let's build you up to go out there and fight that war.
All right, we're going to take a quick break from the episode and recognize an opportunity that we all have. If you are having a hard week or you just need some R&R, here's what you got to do is you got to drive up 75 north, cross the Red River to Durant, Oklahoma, to Choctaw Casino and Resort. It is the best getaway that you can get if you're in the Dallas area by far. And guess what? If you're listening from somewhere outside of DFW, say you're in South Texas or you're in another state, which we've got some listeners in other states, fly into Dallas, drive up. It is worth every penny. You don't have to go to Vegas anymore to have a world-class experience at a world-class resort and casino.
Yeah, we talk about the restaurants that are up there, those steakhouses. We talk about the concert venue. We had a conversation with Aaron Watson previously, and he talked about the intimacy. Every single seat in that concert venue is right on top. And there's not a bad seat in the house.
There's not.
And so these artists talk about it's one of the best places to play. And so go check out yourself a concert at the Spa, the brand new expansion. I mean, it's just such a good time. To your point, Tyler, if you need a break, things are getting crazy, times are tough, get up there, get up to Choctaw Casino Resort, have yourself a great time. We experience it. We love it. They're doing great things in the community. Can't say enough good things, and we're so grateful for their partnership. That's Choctaw Casino Resort. Go check them out. Now back to the episode.
I think, yeah. So you brought up a point, right? It talks about the parents. Yeah. It talks about the influence that we as parents have upon our kids. And what are you saying at home? What jokes are you saying? What shows are you watching? What are these things that you're doing? Like, for example, so my youngest daughter, Sia, like Tiffany, my wife, loves the American Girl dolls, right? Because she only got one as a kid because that's all she could ever afford, and that was like her favorite thing. And so like she started with my oldest daughter, Gia, and then Sia. And so literally Sia at 2 years old, right, got to go pick out her third birthday. She got to go pick out her first American Girl doll. Right. And so she picks a little brown baby. Right. Right. And then every time since, they're all little brown babies, right? And it's you said, like, why are we having this conversation? Is what made me think of this, because I can't tell you how many times, because she takes the dolls everywhere with her. Right. And how many times, like, black women will come up and be like, that is amazing. I've never seen that. Like, and it's a matter of just speaking life into your kids. Yes. And what you say to them matters, because here's the deal is they're not born feeling a certain way.
Absolutely.
Like that is not inherent. It is taught. It is a characteristic that is taught through experience, through conversation, through all these things, right? And with our daughters, like, she doesn't see it. She literally, like, you could put them all there and like she wouldn't know the difference. Right. And so I'm not saying that like, hey, I don't see skin color, I don't see this. Like, the reality is though, is if you speak life, like, that's our brother and our sister. Yes. Like, it doesn't, and that's it.
Yeah. That's it.
Like, that's it. It stops like right there. And so again, it's just different. Like, okay, hey, mommy looks different than daddy, and Rocco looks different than mommy. And it's like all these, but like, we're all family. Like, ultimately we're all family. And if we take that perspective with our kids and we say, look, you love everybody, whether they look different, whether they've done you wrong, it doesn't matter. Like, we love, that's our job. And as opposed to using divisive language, and I want to go back to that point, is there is a real ripple effect. Yeah. We had Matt Osborne on from New Friends, New Life and the men's advocacy group early on. And one of the things that the men's advocacy group does is they go in and they talk to young boys, junior high and high school, about the language that they use towards girls. Because it makes a difference. If you're talking in the locker room, and we've all been there, right? If you're talking in the locker room about disrespecting a girl or whatever you did and then not showing respect, somebody hears that. If a dad's talking about it, and a son hears it,
Right.
what do you think he's going to think and what his perspective of women is going to be? And so that leads to, okay, hey, look, they're just an object.
Right.
And they're just this. They are not a real person because now they are just there to serve me because of the language that I heard from someone that I look up to.
Right.
Happens in the locker room. So if you are saying anything that does not speak life into somebody, there is a ripple effect. And it has to do with race, it has to do with gender, it has to do with socioeconomic class, has to do, there's so many levels that if you're not saying, it's the basic freaking Bambi quote, right?
Yeah.
You don't have anything good to say, don't say it.
Yeah, it speaks to, Tyler, what you're saying is it's up to the parents. And my parents never had conversations with me. It's just how I was raised. I was always in scenarios where people were different than me my whole life.
Yeah.
And so it never needed to be a talk. It was just, that's how we lived. We just lived around people that were different than us. Yeah. And so I think, to your point, I've said this before, that's what makes me a little nervous about my boys and growing up in the city that I'm growing up is most people look like us. Most people are in the same socioeconomic status as us. They look like us. They act like us. They think like us. And to me, that scares me a little bit because what perspective are they ever going to gain if that's the only environment they ever live in? And how many of us do that?
Yeah.
We stay in our little bubbles. We stay around people that think like us.
Yeah, you isolate yourself.
It's comfortable to do that.
Yes.
There's no, you're not rocking the boat at all. Yeah. And so if I just raise my boys in that environment, I never expose them to anybody different, white, black, green, whatever, doesn't matter their color, but just people that think differently than me, they're going to grow up a certain way. They're going to think a certain way, and they're never going to be challenged on those thoughts or those beliefs.
And I think that's why sports means so, it's so strong as far as being in a locker room at any level. At any level. When you have in high school and you're in a locker room experience, or you have college or the pros or whatnot, you have no choice but to get to know each other. There is no isolationism. There's conversations that are going to be had that sometimes are very uncomfortable. There's times there's going to be fights and there's going to be arguments, and racism may be an issue, but you deal with those issues, and then you see how people act and react to certain things that have been said within the locker room. And for some reason, in the locker rooms I've been in, and I'm not speaking to every locker room, trust me. The ones that I've been in, it's just like there's an ultimate goal. And when you have to go through these ups and downs throughout an entire season or an off season, and you have all these things that you're dealing with, like a family, somehow you come out on the better end, because now, like Tyler said early on, there's a trust factor. I know with Troy, I know his heart. Like, yeah, he might have said something a little sideways to somebody else, but fuck, I know that dude. Like, I know his freaking heart. And I know he'll do whatever it takes for whomever it is, right? So it's just a trust issue that you have, and that's, not having that experience and just being in your own little bubble, that's when you start to isolate yourself. You'll be around just your own color, whether you be black, white, brown. If you're just around your people all the time, you're going to have certain thoughts.
Well, and that's what's great about the locker room that I love. And you mentioned that family aspect. And one thing, maybe not my family growing up, like we didn't really talk about much, but like with Tiffany and our family, like if there's an issue, boom, I'm gonna address it head on. Right. Like I'm gonna call it out, call attention to it, and we're gonna discuss it, and we're gonna move on. Same with the locker room. Somebody says something, someone's like, nobody just like, oh, I can't believe he said that. I'm not going to say. No, someone's going to call him out and be like, bro, nah. That's we don't do that. Because immediately, like the leaders, the good teams, and I'm not saying every team, because I think there's locker rooms that may let it go, but the great teams that I've been on say, no. That language is divisive. Right. That's not going to help us get to our goal. If you're putting down a teammate or you're saying something about his girl, about his money, about his race, whatever it is, like that's not helping us achieve our goal. And that's the example that I think it would be great to bring into even the workplace, because we're so scared in the workplace. Like if a leadership person, someone of authority within an organization says something like, oh, I can't say anything because I'm worried about losing my job. No. Right. Bullshit. Hey, Mr. Vice President, like we as a company, we're trying to get here. That's not helping us get here. Right. And you don't have to address it like I'm talking, but like, hey, pull them into an office, say, hey, listen, I know you said that. I just want to call attention to it. I feel like that's not helping us come together as a culture. It's not helping us like achieve the goals that you have set out for us. Right. So just want to bring that to your attention. Make your decision how you want to go from there. Right. But what if we had those conversations? right? What if we had those in the workplace?
Yeah, that takes a lot of courage, man. That's a scary, what's the word? That's a scary scenario to think about if it truly does depend on you having a paycheck or not.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying you're exactly right.
No,
I'm just saying
it's
easy
scary.
to sit here in this
scary.
circle and talk about this. And thankfully, I've always been in work environments where this hasn't been an issue, but I'm trying to think of people who have been in these issues and they're thinking about their babies at home.
Yeah.
And if I speak up and I'm going to get fired, I'm going to lose my paycheck.
Going to happen?
That's what I'm saying.
And so when is change going to happen? It's the NFL. Dude, let's keep using that as an example, right? All these guys are bitching about, the pay, the salary caps, guaranteed contracts, COVID regulations now with Aaron Rodgers, all these things, right? But guess what? No one was willing to skip a paycheck to stand up for what they believed in because the paycheck was more important. Mm-hmm. And now the progress is slowed because and I was through the lockout in 2010. Mm-hmm. And I was not about to give up a paycheck because that was my first year in the league. Right. And I'm like, I don't sign whatever. Mm-hmm. Like I just got to make my $275,000 this year. Like, let's be good with it. Yeah. But like from a perspective now that I'm looking at it, it's like if you're not willing to sacrifice something, like why would you ever expect change?
Man, you just said it. Like, and I think that's one of the big reasons why a lot of it was really divisive in the NFL and in pro sports in general was when players of all races stood up and said, "Look, I know that Colin Kaepernick is one thing and all, but there was a point in the discussion where people stood up, and it wasn't against the flag. It was about brutality in the inner city. And there was a hard stance that was taken by a lot of black players there, right? So there was a passion behind that. And the passion started from just the thoughts of what was going on socially, right? Mm. Like they felt like a lot of them, black athletes or brown athletes at that time felt like we needed to take a stance. But the only way you force change is that you have to be disruptive. If you're not disruptive in any way, if it's not disruptive, and it's the only way change has ever happened in this country, is when, like Martin Luther King, he stood and marched. Yeah, they got beat, but they marched and they were disruptive. They took down block after block of walking, and they didn't go to work, and they did all these things that were disruptive to the economy, and then that forced people to look at it and go, oh, okay, this is a big ass deal. But if you're not disruptive, then things will not change.
Yeah.
And you're speaking to that, Tyler, in your own way of saying, even in the workplace, if there's a vice president that's saying something, if you're just gonna sit on your fucking hands and do nothing about it, nothing's going to change. Yeah. It has to be, and maybe it's Tyler going to go get Ben going to get John, and then stepping up and saying, hey, look, we're not going to have this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, to your point, change is disruptive no matter what scenario we're talking about.
Yeah.
Think about fitness. You've got to be disruptive to change your body.
Absolutely.
There you go. Ben bringing it back to fitness.
You've got to be disruptive to change your body, right? Any change is going to be disruptive. Any change. Yeah. It's just sometimes we're willing to accept a little more disruption than other times.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Depends
on what side of the table you're sitting on.
Depends on where you're coming from.
That's right.
So let's go to the other side. So hold on. Let me clarify the other side. Let me clarify because I want to make sure that I'm honest and transparent about where I stand. Right? There's this woke idea, right? Yeah. And ultimately, and Tiffany asked me, she's like, what's woke? I was like, okay, well, first of all, have you been awake?
All right, sit down for 15 hours. Let's discuss.
But I looked up the definition, right? And it's bringing awareness and fighting social injustice. Okay, that's great. Mm-hmm. I'm all about that. The problem is that has been taken too far, right? This wokeness, right? And this woke culture has gone too far where now anything and everything that you say, if it offends me personally, and it's just something that I'm sensitive about, then you need to get canceled, right? This whole cancel culture deal is too much. We can have different beliefs as long, in my opinion, as long as it's not tearing someone else down. If we talk about the COVID deal and we had this conversation, it's like, look, I believe that I have a choice. And I do not believe that there is enough evidence out there that if I don't get vaccinated, that I'm putting anybody else at more risk than if I was vaccinated. That's my belief. And you know what? I'm entitled to that. But woke culture has taken it too far to where now people that are in the moderates, which I would consider myself somewhere in that moderate category, like we are silenced. Like I don't want to say anything because I don't want to offend this side. I don't want to offend this side. Like, I mean, to the point to where it's like, okay, well, if I tell you you're being racist, okay, now you're going to call me, something because now I can't say anything to you. Like everybody just be your own individual, be this. No. Like we as a people, as a family, as brothers and sisters, as a race, as a human race, right, is we need to progress. We need to grow. We need to do all these things. And anything that is divisive in that nature and you're intentionally tearing somebody down or unintentionally tearing somebody down, okay, let's call attention to it. But it doesn't have to be abrasive. It doesn't have to be demeaning. It doesn't have to, I don't have to take your family's well-being, meals off the table because I'm going to cancel you. Like there's that pendulum that is way too far right now. And what it does is that small population that has swung too far on the pendulum has silenced the majority because it's like, dang, I just can't say anything. So I'm just, which silences them from doing the right thing sometimes. Yeah. It silences because I don't want to speak up because I don't want to get called out for, not being woke or for doing this. It's like, guys,
you can't say shit anymore. I mean,
you can't. That's what's hard. So that's what you're talking about. It's hard to stand up and say,
it's complicated because we went through so long of being on this side. The pendulum was so far on this side for so long, and now we're trying to fix it and correct course. But maybe we have gone. It's like, can we just find?
There's not gonna be balance.
I'm curious. I'm curious, Darren. What's your opinion on this woke culture?
I just
because I'm more along with. Most of my thoughts are along with Tyler's, but I'm curious what Darren.
I think there's an understanding. Look, and I always say being woke for me was just being, we just talked about it earlier. Like my mother was woke back then. Like,
yeah, that's true.
And spoke wisdom to us. And it's the same thing. I don't have to take my shit outside of my home. Look, I got my own 4 kids. I gotta have to raise, right? So yeah, I need to keep them awake and an understanding of what the real world is.
Yeah.
Hey, have an understanding of that. Secondly, I mean, this whole deal right now, social media has just thrown fire on this, right? Because everyone has a damn opinion. Everyone has an opinion. Why are we listening to all this bullshit?
Yeah.
We're playing into all these different things. Look, I feel like if there's something that you feel passionate about and it's something that really burns within you, then go for it. Whatever it is, right? If it's something that just burns in you, then go ahead and go for it. But then, for us to be, have all these thoughts and just, say whatever the hell we want to say and make it demeaning and all that. In my life right now, I just don't have time for the bullshit. Like I don't even listen to half of the stuff that's going on right now, right? Yeah. Right now, I'm trying to do me.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to make a better me.
Yeah.
So hearing all the peripheral stuff, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, and the hard part is, and I want to move on from this woke deal. The hard part is it's a double-edged sword because if I identify or support the minority, whether it's the LGBTQ community or a certain particular race, if I support them, then I can be divisive against the majority. It's like, no. Like that doesn't give you a free pass to tear down someone else. And you're putting the majority into a small category that's really the minority that you're just labeling the majority.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is you're saying Ben and I fall into this category because we look a certain way and there's a small few that really are divisive that look like Ben and I and believe a certain thing. And think that there's a class system and people are better because of this and better because they look that way or they make this much money or there's this job. But then the woke culture is saying, oh, no. You are just as bad as everybody else because you don't support me and what I say. It's like, okay, that you're doing exactly the same thing that you're fighting against. And that's what's like so frustrating because like the logic on the side is like, okay, so you are trying to stop divisiveness with being divisive. Like that doesn't make much sense to me.
Yo, what happened to love?
That's what I'm saying. Back to that point, love, right?
It's like,
it's complicated because it does go back to what you're saying, Darren, on you have to be disruptive. And I think people take that and maybe they turn that disruption to the extreme.
Oh, it's been turned up, man.
Right?
It's been, like my son's just saying, it's
turned up?
turned up, man. But there's,
Judas,
again, like my 5-year-old. But again, it starts like, there's been, politically in this country for the last how many years now? It's been elevated. Everything's been elevated.
Well, because there's incentive to continue that division.
Exactly, right? So it's just, there's been this division, and then now you've got all these different, there's 15 different groups right now that are out there, and they have their own stance or whatnot. And it's because of what's taken place over the last 6-7 years, right? It is what it is, right? I don't have a problem with it, because I don't give a damn. I don't even listen to half of it. Does it affect me? No. Does it affect my kids? No, yes, or whatever. Then I'll figure it out. But man, if it doesn't start with love, like you just said, if it's not encompassing all which is love, then why listen to all the bullshit? Why get on and listen to these podcasts or this social media and listen to guys talk on Instagram where they're being divisive? I don't have time for this shit.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I'm serious, man. If you want to hear negative shit, then tune in.
No, I get it. I get it. You're definitely going to be mentally healthier by just not listening. However, I will say, and I'm the person that I am more comfortable kind of sitting in the background. I wasn't always like the class leader and the safety patrol. That wasn't always what I felt my role was.
Right.
And I say that to say, I understand the mentality of, well, just don't pay attention to it. The problem is real people are getting hurt by this movement. And yeah, some people can justify by saying, but real people are being quote unquote canceled when there was no legitimacy to them being, like their lives are legitimately being ruined when they shouldn't be. And I get the other perspective of saying, well, our lives were ruined for however many years. So I get that. But what I'm saying is you can't only have a head in the sand mentality.
No, you can't.
Because real lives are being affected.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
So, but it goes back to what you're saying of personal excellence.
Yes.
Take care of yourself and your family. If everybody does that, that's how you invoke change. Because what's the goal? What's the true goal? The true goal is not necessarily to reduce hurtful words.
Right.
The true goal is that we all see each other as the same.
Yeah.
And we all have the equal opportunity. And we all and we're all after the same. That's the ultimate goal. Some of us have taken that and gone off the crazy train this way. Others have taken that and put up this wall and said, no, that's not legitimate at all. We're all good. And the rest of us are in the middle somewhere just trying to figure this out. So the ultimate goal is to, at least for me, I think this is the ultimate goal, is again, that we're all just seeing each other as equals. Yeah. I want to take another quick break. And speaking of breaks, I want to thank our sponsor, Sleep Number, who gives you the best break of every single day of your life, which is sleep. And what they're doing with their technology and their mattresses is second to none. They have taken the mattress game and put it on steroids.
Yeah.
They check your heart rate, your circadian rhythm. They're doing all these different things to test you while you're sleeping to make sure that it's custom and that every single night is the most restorative, restful sleep that you're ever going to get.
It's no accident that Sleep Number is the official sleep partner of the NFL. And because NFL athletes are at the top when it comes to recovery, when it comes to taking care of your body, and nothing is more important than sleep. We've talked about it on the show multiple times, making sure you take care of your sleep. And there's a reason that Dak Prescott sleeps on one every single night. And there's a reason that his career has blossomed the way that it has. So make sure either you go online, sleepnumber.com, you go into a local store, they're going to walk you through it. You're going to experience the entire process of understanding what your sleep score is or what your sleep number is, and then ultimately showing you how to achieve the highest sleep score, because that's what's important, is how you actually sleep and how you recover so that you can tackle the day with everything that you have.
Yeah, it's the VIP experience that we're all looking for.
That's right.
It's sleepnumber.com. Like Tyler said, go get yourself to a local store and get yourself that VIP experience. Now back to the episode.
How much does this really bother you, though? Honestly, I mean, I'll ask you, Ben. How much does this really bother you, though? This woke movement or all these other, I mean, there's a ton of movements that are out there, right? How much is it really, to your bottom line, how much does it really bother you?
It bothers me when it starts seeping into things and entities that have control over my life, like the government. That's when it starts to bother me. When policies are starting to be made and things are starting to change, corporations are starting to make decisions based on things that I disagree with.
But does it, okay.
So today where I sit, well, actually, I mean, I guess it's starting to affect my daily life, but I guess today where I sit, I could just turn it all off and my life would probably be okay. But I'm not sure if that's what I'm need to be doing. I don't know if I need to just be shutting everything out.
Right.
I need to be raising my boys the way that I believe that society needs to be headed.
Right.
And I think I need to be vocal about that so that it encourages other people to think the same thing.
Right.
Now, you could completely disagree with me and have different thoughts than me, and you're going to raise your kids to think that way that you're thinking, right? And you're going to, and so you're right, and you said it a second ago, maybe there is never going to be balance here. I don't know.
There's never going to be.
We're never going to get to this utopia.
Listen, all our audience that's out there, if you look at things that has to be fair in life is not fair, period.
Yeah.
Period. Is that woke? Shit ain't going to be fair. Like someone's gonna get something that you just can't get. Period. It's just
that's anti-woke, actually.
Yeah, whatever. That's the fucking reality.
You're spitting in the face of the woke. Actually,
that's the reality. Life is not fair.
Yeah.
Stop worrying about all the other bullshit. And we talk politics all the time. Well, now the politics are this way, and then it's like it's cyclical, man. Every 4 or 5, 8 years, whatever it is, whoever's in office, shit may affect you differently. It might hit your pocketbook a little differently. Things are going to happen. This is how the world goes. It's 52 years in my life, man. I've seen whoever's in office, people are going to be divided in one way or another. Period.
Yeah.
Period. Stop worrying about all the ancillary shit. How does it affect me? And if it affects me like you, I totally agree. If it affects you in a way to where, oh, damn it, I got to take a stance, then take that stance. It's okay. I mean, that's on you to take that stance. But don't look at me and think that I'm going to take the same stance as you.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at my own bottom line.
That's it. That's it. It's like, look, if it affects you and it affects your family, and I am motivated to make it, but don't hold anybody else to that same standard.
Hell yeah.
Because you have no idea how that affects them or how that internally hits them. I mean, I totally agree. And that's what's unfortunate. It's like, well, what do you mean you aren't coming to march about this? Or what do you mean you aren't going to go do this? It's like, listen, look, I'm all about making sure that like social injustice is eradicated. Like I'm all about that. But at the same time, like I've got some other things that I've got to do. And I don't think that it's the best thing to bring my kids down and go protest or do
exactly.
That. Look, but I will support it and I will not put up with social injustice, right?
It speaks to more about how are you raising your kids at home.
Right.
Yeah. That's the
right.
best thing.
No,
that
you know what it speaks to?
That's the best thing.
It doesn't speak to just raising your kids. It speaks to what you're doing in your cause, right? Whatever it is, right? The problem I have is that you hear all these people that have all these movements. There's a ton of movements, but they do it from their fucking phones.
Yeah.
They ain't out there on fucking South Dallas serving kids. I did a damn golf tournament yesterday for 75 kids, right? All day trying to raise money, trying to raise funds for them to have iPads, for them to have breakfast in the morning. Like, go do something.
Yep.
Stop. And we sit here and bitch and we complain and we hide behind our damn phones and all this, but we don't go out and fucking serve.
Thank you.
Like serve, give.
Thank you. That's it. We want to go march. We want to post something. We want to do things, but then you don't do anything to actually go make a change. Thank you for saying that, Darren. Yeah. So I got a question here is, at what point, right, someone does something, I'm thinking of John Gruden here, says or does things in the past.
And you go back after them.
And you go way back and you attack them for past ingressions.
Look,
past discretions. Discretions. That's what
discretion?
Yeah. Discretions, yeah.
I'm going to look it up.
Here's my first thought about, and I've known Coach Gruden for a long time, right? My first thoughts about this was they went back to 2013?
It's like
2011, right? I'll just be honest to my listeners right here, those that are listening and to you guys. You know, the first thing I did is I went back into my email and thought, what the hell have I said? over those years?
Yep.
I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
Right? Like morally, because the moral compass back in 11 is a little different than what it is in 2021, right?
Yeah.
So I had to go back into my own bullshit and go, holy cow, was I talking this way? Like, I mean, stop pointing at John Gruden.
Yeah.
Stop pointing at everybody else.
Yeah.
Point back at self and go, what the hell did I do?
Yeah. I mean, Derek Carr said it. He goes, hey, look, I think if anybody went back 10 years in text messages and email, we'd all get a little bit nervous. The things that like we say within our community. And then him, you know, as they're going through an investigation on someone else, him getting brought into this. Now, it would be this would be the example that I would put the John Gruden deal. Let's just say in college, someone took steroids, right? Now they're 10 years into the NFL. Would they deserve, if it came out that he took steroids in college, should he get cut from his current job?
Right.
He did. He had a mistake in college. He did something stupid in college. Should he then get cut, you know, in his 10th year in the NFL? I mean, would anybody think that that's fair?
No, that's not happening.
No.
It's not happening.
No. Like, so people make mistakes. And if anybody out there is listening and is like, it doesn't think that they've made mistakes, that they were perfect 10 years ago, that they were perfect 20 years ago, anybody that thinks that, look yourself in the mirror. That person in front of you is a liar if that's truly what you think. Because nobody is perfect. Nobody on this planet today is perfect. So stop holding other people to a standard that you can't even live to. All right. We all want to be better. Yes, we all want to hold each other to a higher standard. But if somebody made a mistake, show some grace. Now, if John Gruden had done that while working for the Oakland Raiders and to this team, and he had said something, okay, look, that's a different conversation, right? Like that is completely different, right? Hold him accountable, 100%. But then to go back when he worked for another job and taking these contexts between buddies that I'm not condoning what was said. I'm not saying that was okay.
Right.
So let's be clear about that. But then to take this job away from him, that's the cancel culture.
But I think what does speak to this, and again, John's a good friend and has been for a long time. What does speak to that is what we spoke on earlier. It's like, you know, those things that are coming out of your mouth, those things that you're writing down, those things that are being said, hey, that's the concussion. That's that concussion bomb, because he's not just having that conversation. I'm just being real here.
Yeah.
Like, he's just not having those conversations over emails. He's kind of dropped that bomb now. That's probably conversations that have been taking place in his house as well, with his kids around.
Yeah, if you're comfortable writing it,
if you're comfortable writing it, you're probably more comfortable saying it out loud. And within your own sanctuary, right? Yeah. So that's where we go back and start, hey, man, if we really want to force change, it starts with our own, what's coming out of our mouth within our own house.
And that's your mom saying what reality is as parents.
Yes,
like,
reality.
Here's the reality. Like, what you say will be held. Is it fair all the time? No,
it's not fair all the time. Yeah.
But what you tweet 10 years ago can affect you today. The reality is that's what it is. Be aware of it and recognize, look, you've got to be above reproach. Like, you cannot give somebody an opportunity to tear you down, because the reality is that's what people are trying to do. People are trying to get theirs by tearing you down.
Yeah. Every story you tell about your mom, and my respect for her just continues to increase.
I think it was,
how she was.
But I'll say this: she was alone. Like, you know, there's times right now. My wife Tiffany and I, we have Judea, and it's a lot easier to raise my son based on the fact that there's two voices. And when I'm down or I'm having that bad day and I'm about to go in on him, my wife jumps in. She says, "Hey, calm down. I got him. I'll deal with it."
Checks and balances.
It's a checks and balances, right? She didn't have the checks and balances.
No,
and didn't have the time to deal with a lot of BS. So it was black and white. Here it is. She wasn't perfect at all.
Yeah,
but I had a real firm understanding of what the real world was.
Yeah, she did a hell of a job.
I can't even imagine that, honestly. Like, last night, like, my daughter's getting baptized here in a couple weeks, and so she's like writing her testimony and doing all that. And like, if I didn't have Tiffany, like, that's me sitting down and writing that with her. Tiffany helped her write it out while I went to the gym and worked out. Right. And like, I got to finish some work I just think I can't even imagine raising that many kids by yourself and working and doing all things. It's just like, I don't know. imagine being on the Echo bike for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Right, you just never get a break.
Yeah. So as we close this out, what are y'all's final thoughts, encouragement? How do y'all want to wrap this up?
I would say love yourself, man. And we always say this all the time. It starts with you. If you want to force change, whether it be disruptive or whatnot, it starts with you, but it should start with love. That should be the foundation of where you start this from. And don't be an isolationist, sitting behind the door by yourself on social media, screaming at people. Get out, get to know other folks that look totally different than you, and serve others, and you'll have a totally different perspective.
That's what I was going to say is this. I feel like every time we have this discussion, we can't have it enough. The discussion of serving others, it always challenges me personally. I always think, well, I haven't done enough in my community. I can sit here and talk about all these changes we need to make and all these things we need to do, but the reality is I haven't been serving enough. And so for me, it's the personal challenge of, starts with your home and taking care of yourself and your family. But at the same time, like you said, Darren, get off social media, get out in your community and serve people.
What I've
actually
heard
have real conversations and real effect on people.
Yeah, and it's not just, look, would my foundation C5 love a check? Yes.
Sure.
We would love a check. But it means even more when volunteers come in and they see these 13, 14, 15-year-old kids, and they actually spend time and pour into them, and then it's like, holy cow. Like, I'm touching and feeling a young man or a woman or a young kid that's going to grow up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have a positive influence on it. That is so... That to me, that's inspiring when I can actually see them grow through that process.
It's that disruption you're talking about. Yeah. Writing a check is great, and that can disrupt you a little bit, right? Yeah. Especially if you write more,
which is good.
What you're normally comfortable with.
Yeah.
But disrupting your comfort and getting out there and actually getting your elbows dirty. Yeah. Tyler, what about you?
Yeah. So I'm gonna say this is Tiffany's favorite thing is just be a light. Yeah. Be a light in this world. Don't be the darkness that tears somebody down. Speak life into people, and I'm going to just read a verse just because I think it's so true. So it's Matthew 14 and 15. It's you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on the lampstand. But it gives light to all those that are in the house. Be a light. Be contagious. Be the person that lights up a room when you walk in because you are going in and you are loving people. You are lifting people up. Like Don't give in to excuses. Yep. Don't give in to divisiveness. Don't give in to tearing people down. Like, be a light. And here's what's crazy about that is think about everybody in your life that, like, when you walk into a room, they just kind of light it up. Mm-hmm. Like, what is common between all those people, right? They bring people together. It ultimately leads to a much more enjoyable, better life.
Yeah, it does, man. Gosh, brother, you just hit it.
Those are the people that you want to
be
do
around.
business
and
with.
You want to be around people.
And you want to be around.
Yeah.
And you want to have community with. Be a light, man. Don't be the darkness that's in a room. Be someone that gives off light.
Love it.
What's your thoughts, man?
I just gave you my thoughts.
No, you have more.
I got more?
You got more, bro.
You got to give us like 2 or 3 really solid quotes. That would be great.
You have like 1 or 2 in your back pocket.
I know.
The expectations are there.
We went out of order today. You went, then I went, and then Tyler went.
Yeah, that usually is the opposite, isn't it?
Well, no. Usually it's Darren goes and Tyler goes, and then we just end it, and nobody asks me what I think.
That's a good point.
That's usually how it goes. So hopefully this conversation today sparked something in you. Hopefully it encouraged you to have these conversations with those that are around you. If it did that, man, share this podcast, share this episode. This is our goal here, is to spark these hard conversations, but necessary ones. And that hopefully that it can inspire you to change and enact and start encouraging those around you. So if this episode did something for you, please give us a share. Instagram, we're at Darren Woodson Show. Yeah. YouTube, we're the Darren Woodson Show. Those are our 2 main platforms. So please share this stuff. That's how this grows. That's how you guys can help us. Yeah. We appreciate you so much. Hopefully you're enjoying this new schedule as well. Yeah. I know you're listening to this on a Thursday. So we appreciate you guys, and we will see you next week.